All right, let's talk about Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. Recently, with the couple weeks we've had since the game has come out, a lot of people are starting to speak up more and more about the game, whether it's good or bad. And unfortunately, more than likely, it's going to be a very hard year for Suicide Squad. Unless you have been living under a rock, you've heard about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League that came out earlier this month. Has to do with some villains actually killing the Justice League and doing what they actually said, with all of the response to the game and with all of the negative stuff around the game. Recently, Warner Brothers put out a statement saying that it has failed to meet expectations. And everyone's pointing fingers on what is the good, what is the bad of this statement, including, recently IGN put a post saying the same thing, that they think that the game is failing and is going to have a very rough year one. Now, currently, the game is also suffering from some issues, even though I don't play anymore. I've done everything in the game, and I do plan on keeping up with the game as long as they are putting out content for it. I do believe that there's going to be a very hard chance that we see every season come forward unless some very, very big foundational changes come to the game. Now, I'm not saying if they can do it or not, but I do believe the game is really fun. I've put about 100 hours in the game, and I enjoyed it for what it was, but I do see a lot of the faults in the game. I play a lot of looter shooters. You've probably seen me cover a couple of them, whether it be in Borderlands and Destiny. I've also spent a lot of time playing Division and a little bit of time playing Warframe, so I have a little bit of knowledge on what makes looter shooters work. I have some knowledge as well on what makes looter shooters not work. For the most part, I don't want to spend time talking about that right now. I want to talk about, can Suicide Squad live? Currently on Twitch and on the Steam boards, they are both under 1,000 concurrent viewers and players, which can be telling. However, again, if you've already played the game a lot, you've probably done everything in the game. And also, right now, the game is also suffering from login issues, so people are unable to play as well, as long as produce content for the game. This tells me is that this is probably part of why the numbers are as low as they are. I've also seen the numbers go as high as 2 to 3,000 in the last couple of days. However, granted, those numbers are also inflated a little bit by a few bigger streamers pumping those numbers up. One of the questions that a lot of people have is, can season 1, which is supposed to come out April 1st, save this game? And my biggest question currently is, can the game even live long enough to get to season 1? If you haven't played the game currently, a lot of people ask me, is it worth the $70 price tag? I can't tell you what to do with your money. I know a lot of people in the comments and just everywhere will tell you whether or not it's worth it or not. I've had a lot of people in my stream say it was worth their $70, and people have said that it was not worth their $70. You can do with that information what you will. Now, when you have games coming out like Helldivers 2, which is under the AAA price tag. You also have Power World, which is another game that came out that was really, really big, that was also under the AAA price tag. It can be very difficult for a gamer, especially if they only pick up a game a couple times a year, to warrant that valuation of if it's worth dropping that amount of money versus picking up one of these cheaper games and playing that. Especially when you look at a game specifically like Helldivers 2, which is on the rise right now. I've always said that looter shooters have a place. I know a lot of people try to say looter shooters don't have a place, but I think looter shooters have their place, especially live game service looter shooters, when they are done well. Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of live service games come out and just fail right out the gate. And unless you are a massive company with a big backing, like Bungie or Ubisoft, there's a pretty big chance that you will not be able to survive your first year. And if you are able to survive your first year, who's to say that you'll be able to just keep playing and keep getting players into your game? One thing's for certain, the last couple looter shooters in the live service games industry that is still around, those games have been out for almost a decade. Looking at Warframe, looking at Division, looking at Destiny, those games are just, they've been out for a long time. They have very strong communities that even in the ups and downs have constantly come around and kept the game floating. And I'm curious whether or not Suicide Squad is going to do that. As a whole, no matter how good or bad the game is, what decides whether or not a game is going to continue living is the community. Whether or not the community wants it to keep going, whether or not the developers listen to the community, and whether or not, even in the dark times, whether or not the game is worth them investing their time in, even occasionally, even picking it up a couple times a week, even if it means just, logging in and making sure those numbers stay, relevant enough that the company feels with enough time and effort is worth, pushing out a big content drop. Every one of those games that I mentioned have had massive content drops that have like bolstered the community, bolstered the like numbers on Twitch, on Kick, on YouTube, on pretty much every platform has bolstered it, gotten a lot of interest on Google, and just allowed the company and the content and the community and anything revolving around that live service game to flourish. So when they get to those dark times, those times, it's not as bad. It's very telling and very unfortunate that this is happening at such a early time in the life cycle. We don't even have season one. They already planned all these seasons out, and it's going to be very unfortunate if we don't even get to that point. Your guess is as good as mine. One of the biggest things are the end game. The end game is unfortunately the worst part of the game, in my opinion. Once you get to the point of, say mastery level 20, 30, 40, there's almost no reason, unless you care about leaderboards, which has kind of been just broken up into like a cheaters, haven. Unless you fix or give players reasons to invest more into those situations or to go into the higher levels, then there's not much reason to go any higher than honestly level 50, especially when that's when the rewards cap out. Now, I do know when season one comes around, they're adding some new missions, some new variants and stuff. But again, it's not even March right now. Can they live another month before we get to that new content? Who's to say when season one drops, we don't see the expectations also met again? We might see a little bump, but the only people you'll really see are the super duper diehard couple hundred players who are at the top of the leaderboard, mastery level 200, that just want to play no matter what and keep their, status maybe. Between the server and game issues, especially with this information coming out as well, I don't want to use the word fear, but I do fear that we might not get as much as they are promising, as much as they're hoping. All of the content that they do plan on releasing in season one and season two could save the game, but can the game get to that point and live long enough to where, we don't even need to have to deal with this in a year? Who's to say in a year we're not talking about Suicide Squad like we're talking about Anthem now? The toughest thing about this genre is that we don't have any games coming out that will be filling those gaps unless you are looking for something totally different in that genre. I know recently the last Epoch and Diablo 4 are some of the biggest ones that are currently around, but even those are for a different type of player. I'm pretty sure if you're a player that's just looking for a game to grind, you can probably name off multiple games that are, keeping your interest way more. But if you're looking for a very specific, looter shooter genre game that's going to move us forward in the next half decade, where is it? Otherwise, we're probably still going to be playing Warframe, Division, Borderlands, and Destiny until those games decide to not make games anymore as well, or until the genre as a whole is no longer, something that gamers want to really invest in. All in all, I'm pretty sure, the game's going to still do some things and some players are still going to be interested. As of right now, I'm not really positive that I can recommend the game unless you're planning on just picking it up, playing it for a little bit, and it's been on sale for a while. Which is unfortunate because I'm always looking out for my new favorite looter shooter to grind and get into. And, this had some potential. But until we see some foundational changes, this is just a tip of the iceberg as regards to just, what is coming. And the more studios keep trying to make these type of games and compete with the Destiny Killer title and fail, the less likely we'll probably see this happening, more and more. So let me know what you think. If you're one of the players that are interested in Suicide Squad surviving, let me know in the comment section. If you are thinking about trying it out, let me know what you think about the game. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.